The morning had an uncomfortable twinge to it. I tried to open my eyes slowly, hoping they would not burn like they did most mornings. They burned. They burned worse than usual, actually. Mondays would do that to a man. I drank this entire weekend. That made this Monday a lot worse. But I knew what I was getting myself into. Started to get out of bed reluctantly, bringing my body from that comfortable horizontal position to a vertical one. The moment I sat up, all the pain I tried to drink away the days and nights before rocketed into my skull. I sat for a moment on the edge of the bed with my throbbing head in my hands before I went to the bathroom to shave. Mondays. I said to myself looking in the mirrors, I fucking love Mondays. It was my mantra. I wasn't just saying the words, I was convincing myself they were true. Just 5 more days until I can try to forget it all again. I was finally ready. The repercussion of my weekend activities had slowed me down considerably during my morning routine. When I got to Judy Hughes Used Cars, the place I so gratefully called my employment, I rubbed my eyes one last time, stuck my name tag onto my button-up shirt before I headed into work. Jeremy Clark, Senior Salesman. Jeremy, Lisa called me. She was always at the front desk, and she always seemed so happy to see me. I might be happy to see her if she would drop a few pounds. She wasn't fat. I guess you'd call her thick, but the fat-bottomed girls never made my rockin' world go round. Hey, Lisa, I said back. You have a good weekend, Jeremy? Her voice was cloyingly happy. Tremendous. I started to pour myself a cup of coffee from the sticky brown dispenser that was on the front desk. There was a sign that said it was for customers only, and truthfully, we had a much better coffee machine in the break room. But Judy Hughes Used Cars could suck my dick. They had such a good opportunity to create a really clever jingle with that name, like Judy Hughes Used Cars. I mean, that shit pretty much writes itself. Judy Hughes Used Cars. Come on, do something with that. I spilled some coffee on the desk as I pulled my cup away from the dispenser. Oh, Jeremy, you're always so messy. Don't worry about it, hon. I can clean that up. Lisa always did too much for people. She was always doing too much for people who never wanted to do anything for her. Thanks, Lisa. I started to walk toward the boss's office to get some required FaceTime in, but something held me back. How was your weekend? I asked her. I don't know why I asked her. I had never asked her before. I can't say that I particularly cared anymore that I ever had about her weekend. Lisa seemed to be startled as I was. It was pretty good. I took my dog to the park on Sunday. It was a good day Sunday. Was it? I stared at my coffee cup for a moment. I always left it black. It was bitter that way. I liked it as bitter as possible. No point sweetening the protrude swill that dispenser pumped out with powdered creams and grainy sugar. Dog, huh? She stared at me like I was done talking. I didn't look up until she started talking again. Yeah, he's kind of a mutt, but he's fun and he's cute. Name? I looked up at her when I asked. She wasn't unattractive at all. Nice lips. Maybe I should look at her more often. She probably doesn't get to talk to many people. Yeah, his name is Beasley. Beasley? Yeah, Beasley. I don't really know how to explain it. It just fits him, she said. Maybe so. I wouldn't really know unless I see him. Lisa blushed at the idea of 2 of us hanging out outside of work. Why the hell does she like me so much? She's the only one who didn't call me Jeremiah. I don't know if that's significant. I hated hearing anyone say my name. You could see him sometimes. He loves new people. Actually, sometimes I think he loves new people more than he loves me. She trailed off and made a playful frown. I gave her a courtesy laugh and took a sip of my coffee. It was perfectly horrible. Barry, Judy Hughes' husband, came out of her office before I had to say something else to Lisa. Jeremiah, there you are. Judy was just talking about you. He ushered me toward him into their office. I sat down in one of the chairs opposite her desk, showing as little contempt as possible. Barry shut the door and stood there awkwardly, leaning against the wall. It was like I was about to be interrogated. Hell, maybe I was. Maybe they were on to my countless cup of pilfered, customer-only coffee. Really, though, I bet they don't suspect anything. Judy and Barry were nice enough, but they owned a used car lot. Any assumptions one might have about used car lots owners were probably right when applied to them. Jeremiah. Judy knitted her fingers together on her desk. I think she was trying to do it meaningfully. But she owned a used car lot. There nothing she did was meaningful. Jeremiah, I'm going to be frank with you. Don't be frank, be Judy, Barry said with a smile. I turned around in my seat to see his idiotic smile. He was proud of his joke. Barry was, in essence, Judy's fool. She got to keep her last name while they married, and she probably added his nuts to her collections. There was a silence. Judy continued. If I'm looking at these reports right, and I'm pretty sure I am, it appears that your numbers are slipping a bit. She paused again, in an attempt to be meaningful. I sipped my coffee again, as meaningful as I could. It was getting cool. The cooler it got, the worse it got. We really want to expand the lot, Jeremiah. It's going to be hard to do that, with our best salesman slipping. I know you've been through a lot lately, probably more than any of us know, but we need you, Jerry. Jerry, I thought. Jerry. I nearly spilled my coffee. Why can't people just pick a name and stick with it? At least Lisa did it. But Jerry? Gross. What am I, 50? Though I was having an internal flare-up, I sat there in silence, waiting for her to continue, but she didn't seem inclined to do so. It took me a moment to pick up on her cue to speak. Right, I got to admit, Judy, that I felt myself slipping. Time to turn on the schmooze. I'm really trying to get my head in the game, you know. Get things rolling for the team. I turned around to make eye contact with Barry, trying to engage my audience. I'll get it together. It's summertime. People want cars. We can do this. I can do this. Judy seemed satisfied. I guess I struck the right chords with her. The rest of the week passed by rather unremarkably. I sold a few cars. I didn't blow anything out of the water. Just kept doing my job with the same lackluster conviction I've had for the past 9 months. To me, this was a job. It wasn't my career like it was for Judy and Barry. It was a means to an end. It gave me the means to do what I needed to do to get through the weekends. Work kept me busy enough, Monday through Friday, but I had to fast forward through the weekends. They were too slow and my thoughts and memories ate at me, if I did not keep myself occupied with the petty concerns of a used car lot. That's why I drank, to fast forward and to forget. It was that time again. Friday had rolled around once more and it was 5:48. Judy Hughes' used cars was shutting down. As I walked to the door to leave, my shaky fingers fumbling to get my name tag off, Lisa was standing at the front desk filing some last-minute bullshit away from the weekend. I always wanted to tell Judy that if she wanted to make more money, she should keep this place open on the weekends. But everyone needed a break. I wasn't about to volunteer the time I intended to waste this weekend. I had my hand on the door when Lisa looked up to say goodbye. Checking out, Jeremy? She said with a smile. Her hair was disheveled, but still seemed attractive. A lock fell into her face as she looked at me. She pushed it back behind her ear. Certainly not staying here, I said. You should get out of here too. I tried to smile at her. It was insincere. Yeah. She laughed a little and went back to sorting her papers. I'm sure I will soon. Big plans this weekend? She seemed genuinely interested. Same. Taking Beasley out again? She was obviously flattered I remember her dog's name. I like to. She trailed off again. I think she does that a lot. Maybe she just does it for me. She wasn't done talking, I could tell. She's really awkward when she pauses with something more to say. Textbook's Lisa. If you're not busy, maybe you could meet him. I mean, if the weather is nice and everything. A weird thought crossed my mind. I stood there for a bit. I checked my shoes and I looked back at her. Been long enough I could see someone. Actually, what are you doing tonight? I asked Lisa. Well, I don't think I have any plans. I don't know. I smiled at her. It may have been the first time I've ever really smiled at her. Want to meet for a drink? Sure. She was excited, obviously. Where? Cousins off of South Street, around 7. That work? Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be there. Great, I said. I walked out the door and drove home. I sat at the bar. I hated this bar, probably about as much as I loved it. The only bartender I ever saw here, only one I remember seeing here, was blonde Shirley, arguably a little white trash. She was serviceable. I got there early. I wanted to get a few drinks in before Lisa got there. I wasn't nervous. I haven't done this before and I could do it again. I just knew things were going to get a little weird, so I sat and drank. I was drinking 7 and 7s. That was the best drink for these situations. I was doing something I have told myself time and time again I was going to do ever again. I needed a few drinks. God damn it, I didn't need a few drinks. I need some shots. Chelsea, I called out, raising a finger. She came over to me after she set her other order down. Yeah? Can I get 2 shots of Jameson? Certainly, she said with a wink before she tried it off. She doesn't like me, but I spend money and trip like a drunkard who doesn't understand finances because I am a drunkard who doesn't understand finances. So she's cordially enough. Thanks. She brought them eventually and I shot one. I sat with my empty shot glass, my full shot glass, my half-empty 7 and 7. I sat there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes just listening to the meandering cacophony of bullshit swirling around me before I shot the other one. The moment I got that shot down, the door chime sang. It was Lisa. I turned to look at her. I smiled at her. I gave her a real smile before I could even stop myself. She saw me, and I smiled back. A smile that was far more real than I could ever put on. She came up and sat next to me. Jeremiah Clark, a drinking man, she said. She was far more flirtatious than I had ever conceived she had the ability to be. I let out a small laugh. You have no idea. I took a sip of my drink. The 2 shots had just settled in, but she was more intoxicating than anything else I had consumed. I wanted more. It had been a long time for me, and I wanted more. She was in a white and black dress, not too fancy. I have always heard that every girl had to have that little black dress. I may be willing to bet that this was hers. It worked. Her brown hair was down. I had seen it before at work, but never like this. I said she was thick before. She isn't. That was the wrong word. She was curvy. Oh, I might have an idea. She leaned over the bar to get Chelsea's attention. She arched her back against the wood. It's hard not to take a bite right then and there. 2 shots of Jameson, please. She half yelled at Chelsea. I was pleasantly surprised. So, what have you been up to since I saw you last? Sorry I was late, but that, by the way, Beasley was being a butthole. Butthole? Beasley the butthole, I said. She laughed and did that thing where she tucks the hair that falls in her face behind her ear. Yeah, that's a good title. But really, what's a man like Jeremy Clark do when he's not at work? It's probably a lot less incredible than you think. And you think I think the things you do are incredible? She was taunting me. I didn't mind it. I looked at her. I looked at her for a while because I didn't know what to say. I never did. I leaned back in my chair and said, You're drunk, Lisa Capperlini. Oh my God, don't say my last name. It's gross. She covered her eyes. You're drunk, I said with a smile. Yeah, so what? I drank before coming out. I got nervous. Don't say my last name. Okay, I won't, I said. She forced me to smile again. I might be too, I mean. A little bit. You know, you have said more to me tonight than you ever had at work. Sorry. I know you are. So then, just don't say my last name anymore and we can be even. Deal? Deal. I understand. My first name is Jeremiah. I understand. Why do you think I call you Jeremy? Jeremiah is a mouthful. I wish I heard that more often, I said. She laughed and then stared at me with her mouth wide open. I think she was trying to act like she was shocked or something. I don't know. She started to talk again, but Chelsea came with the shot and ruined it. 2 shots of Jameson. Thanks, Lisa said. Well, she handed me one of the shots. What we're toasting to? Beasley Butthole, I said. We toasted and took our shots. We drank for a while. Things were going far better than I thought. The idea of taking her home grew stronger and stronger in my head. Got to where I couldn't ignore it anymore. Every time she talked, it was all I could think about. I was honestly afraid that if I took her home, I would do things I would regret. But the more we stayed, the less I cared about any of that. We stayed and talked a few more hours. We were getting pretty blitzed. "So it's pretty late," she said. "Can you get home okay?" "If I say no, will you walk me home?" I asked. "Walk you? Where do you live?" "A block away," I said. "So that's why you asked me here," she said with a wink. "Maybe. But you should get home to Beasley." "No, you know what? He's a good dog. He can stay home alone. I don't appreciate you initiating otherwise." Insinuating? "Yeah, it's what I said. I'll walk you home now." She said all this very quickly. "Deal," I said. I stood up and waited for her to stand. We walked to the door together, then I opened it for her. When we walked through into the warm cool of the summer night, I offered her my arm. She took it and we walked to my house. I was nervous when we walked through my front door. The house wasn't that kept up with, but it wasn't filthy. She was probably too drunk to notice. I hoped she was. "So this is Jeremiah Clark's house," she said as she sat down in her purse and looked away. I don't know what she could have been looking at truthfully. There wasn't anything remarkable to be seen. Nothing memorable. I tried as hard as I could not to remember. I didn't need knickknacks bringing up things I intentionally tried to forget. If you can't remember it, then you didn't do it. Yeah, I guess it is. For now. For now? What? Why? Don't you like it here? There's a lot of stuff here I don't like to remember. Had already said too much. She was going to latch onto those words like a crocodile. That's what I thought at least. She didn't seem to bite. Maybe she was the same sort as me. She just looked around. It kind of felt good to have someone snoop through my home again. "Bathroom down here?" She pointed down my hall. "Yeah." She walked out the living room. It went to the kitchen to pour us a few more drinks. When she came out, I had them sitting on the coffee table in my living room. "Thanks." She picked up her glass and took a drink. "Tell me about Jeremy. I don't really know much about you, I guess." "You don't," I said. "We should change that. This is a big house for just you." I don't think she would say that. "It is. There used to be others. Well, there used to be others." "Oh, you used to have a roommate?" It was an innocent enough question, but I didn't want to answer it. "You could say that. I used to involve with someone." "Oh, like a girlfriend?" She looked a little deflated. She didn't want the conversation to go this direction any more than I did. "More than that," I said. "Oh." "Yeah, I was married." "Wow, really?" "Surprisingly." She looked interested. "Well, where are they now?" I looked around but didn't say anything. "Are you still married? Should I leave?" She touched my arm with framed concerns. She was trying to be funny. "No, she's dead," I said. Lisa took her hand off my arm and looked up into my eyes. I don't know how I looked at that moment, but I didn't feel anything when I said it. I didn't want to bring any of this up. "Oh, I'm so sorry. What happened?" "I don't remember," I said. She started to speak, but I interrupted her. We were driving home one night. I was driving home one night, and then something happened. I can't remember, but I woke up to sirens and lights. She was dead in the seat next to me. "Just like that?" Lisa loved to ask questions. Her tone didn't question what I had just said, though. She was saying it as bluntly as I would. "You two were drinking?" "Yes." "Did anyone else die? Did you hit someone? Did they die?" She loves questions. "Yeah, someone else died," I said. "I'm so sorry. The other driver died?" "No." "Who died then, Jeremy?" She looked into my eyes with real concern. "My wife was pregnant. We didn't know," I said to her. She looked at me with her mouth wide open. She was hurt for me. She felt the pain I should feel every day, but I just couldn't anymore. "My God, Jeremy, I'm so sorry. I didn't even know how you can function. I'm so sorry." It's not all bad." How? How can you say that?" she asked. I stared in my hands for a second, thinking the right way to answer her. The best way was always the honest way. Because I still see them, I said. There was a moment of silence. Lisa looked like she was about to cry, and then she started to laugh softly. It crescendoed into a hearty chuckle. You're fucking kidding me, Jeremy. She took a long sip of her drink, then laughed a little more. I mean, I may look like a ditz, but I'm not dumb. Stop that. I'm not joking. Whatever, she said as she laughed a little more. She finished her drink. They're right there. I pointed to a corner in my living room. Lisa turned to check. She couldn't have seen anything. You're freaking me out, Jeremy, she said. I just looked into the corner. My wife stood there bleeding. Next to her stood a nude figure. It was faceless and genderless. It looked mangled and crippled, but wasn't bloody like my wife was. They watched me when I was home. They were always watching me. I never saw them move and I never heard them speak, but I knew what they wanted me to do, and try as might, they did not want me to forget. They wanted me to remember what I did. They wanted me to always remember. I knew I would do what they wanted. I always will. I didn't want to, but I would always do what they wanted. They wanted me to kill Lisa, just like I killed them. I did.